Well, that was a little bit of jazz from my band. That was actually at a festival in Jacksonville, Florida, I think in 1981 or 82. So I've been telling my testimony this week, and I told you yesterday about how I sort of made music my God. And while I was involved in a church, I really wasn't acting or exhibiting any evidence that I was walking with the Lord. And my whole life was just about music. I had some music stores, I had a nightclub, but I really wanted to see what I could do with my band. So I sold the music stores and kept the nightclub and tried to set out on the road with my band to see if we could make it in the big time. We did over 2,000 performances in a 4-year period. It was insane, literally. Sometimes we would do 5 performances a day, and we traveled all over the country. And at the end of that time, I started playing mainly in the Lawrence, Kansas City area. And then I got a job. It was a dream job for a jazz musician. It was in a big new hotel in downtown Kansas City where the theme of the whole hotel was jazz. We played in a dinner club, a nightclub where they served food at the hotel that was called the 12th Street Rag. And it was on the exact spot, the same street location, where the song, The 12th Street Rag, was written back in the early 1900s. We got to play there 5 nights a week for almost 3 years. There was a few months span in the middle of that where we weren't there. We had a 7-piece group that was made up of all-star musicians. I was by far the weakest link in the group. Everybody else were really, really fantastic musicians. And musicians from all around would come in and listen to us. The first few months that we were there, we had standing room only crowds on Tuesday nights, Tuesday through Saturday. It was just full. Now, this was after a career of making some records and doing some national TV shows, and traveling all over the country and stuff like that. So I was at the point where, from a career standpoint, I had made it. Jazz musicians at the most will play somewhere for 2 weeks at a time. Usually it's a one-night thing, and you're in a different town, in a different hotel, or wherever you play every night. So to be someplace for almost 3 years at the same time, to be able to sleep in your own bed and live a normal life with your family and everything, make good money and have your name in lights and have other musicians come to hear you, that was pretty much the pinnacle as far as it gets from a jazz musician. Well, we're there for 2 or 3 months, standing room only, all this kind of stuff. And I find myself on our breaks going back into the dressing room and thinking, is this all there is? Because I was empty. I was empty. I mean, I had thought when I was looking for this elusive, whatever it was, when I finally found it, I thought, wow, I'm going to feel fulfilled. I'm going to feel gratified. This is going to be great. And I was totally empty. And it was depressing. It was really depressing. I mean, where do you go from there? If you do everything you hoped you could do and you come up empty, where do you go from there? I was going to church. That wasn't doing it for me. So I was out of options. Fortunately, at that time, I met a man, a businessman in Kansas City, who seemed to have everything I was looking for. He was happy. His wife and kids adored him. He was very much in demand as a speaker and business consultant. He was just a lot of fun. He was a great guy. He had a wonderful attitude. So I started hanging out with him, having lunch with him and another group of businessmen on Fridays. And one day I hung around after everybody else left, and I just said to him, I said, Glenn, whatever it is you have, I want it. And he said, well, I'm a Christian. And I said, well, I am too. I go to church, I recycle, I vote Republican. What else is there? I literally said that. He smiled. He could have burst out laughing. And he said, no, I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I'd never heard that term before. I had no idea what it meant. I was scared, but I was still empty. He wisely said, do you have a Bible? And I said, well, not really. I think I got one that I had when I was a kid somewhere, but I don't know where it is. And he said, did you know that they have Bibles in today's language? I didn't know that. This is like in the 1980s. I didn't know that. So he suggested I go out and buy a New American Standard Bible. And he said, you start reading in the New Testament in the book of John and just ask Jesus if he's there to speak to you, to reveal himself to you. I was so empty and so devastated that I thought, I'll try it. What have I got to lose? So I started every morning doing that, and God started speaking to me. I mean, I had heard from God pretty much since I was a kid, but God really, through the scripture, just started speaking to me and revealing himself to me. And I really started developing that personal relationship with him. Now, I was still going to a very liberal church, and I didn't know anybody other than this one guy who lived in Kansas City, and I lived in Lawrence, which, we were an hour away. So I just spent a lot of time listening to God and reading the Bible. And then I started reading some other books, and eventually got hooked up with some people in a parachurch ministry, and eventually started going to a church where the Bible was taught. And my life changed dramatically. I mean, there was just, I knew it, everybody else knew it. My life just totally changed. The way I thought, the way I acted. I still had issues with anger and with trust and workaholism and things like that. But for the most part, there was such a dramatic change that I knew it had to be God, and everybody else did too. So that's how I ended up getting out of coming up empty. Got a couple of more days this week where we'll finish up the rest of my testimony. Thanks for watching today. See you next time.